एक बार एमबीबीएस का टाइम पे पैसे नहीं थे मेरे पास, दूसरा वाला बहुत चली गया। मैं दोपहर में वो पढ़ने का मन नहीं करता, मैं मेरा इरेजर साफ कर कौन सी इसमें गुजर है हर पैर के छोटे साथी लाइफ मैं शाम का थर्ड मैं सुबह 4:30 बजे उठी, पढ़ाई की, मार्च पास्ट कंपटीशन के लिए गई, स्कूल आई, वापस फिर स्कूल से खा हमारा था, स्कूल से खा घर से खा के आई, डिबेट जीत के सब्जी थक के आई एंड घर पे आई, सोई, फिर ड्यूटी आने से जस्ट पहले उठी, थोड़ा मेरा पोजीशन पेपर में अमेंडमेंट किया, फिर इधर उठ के आ गई। तो इतना काम मैं तो यहाँ से 4:30 बजे से उठी हूँ। मेरी जीने की इच्छा अंदर से खत्म हो चुकी है। मैं 9 बजे उठी, हमारा 7:30 बजे देखा, 5 बजे उठी, फिर मैं नहाने गई, फिर मैं आई, मैं थोड़ा बहुत मेरे कपड़े निकाले, मेरा मैं मम्मा मेरी अमेज़न पे जा देख रही थी, ये मॉडल मेरे थोड़ा डांस म्यूजिक पे जा रहा हूं, पता नहीं ये शॉर्ट्स में करते हैं क्या, मेरे को भी मोस्ट ऑफ द चीजें मेरा नी लेंथ तक ही है, नी लेंथ तक का पेंसिल, नी लेंथ तक शॉर्ट्स है, और मतलब पहन सकते हैं हम, बट इट्स गोना बी कोल्ड नाउ, वो मेरी मम्मा बोल रही थी, न्यूटन पर मेरा 90% ऑफ द चीजें मेरा नी लेंथ तक थी, बास्केटबॉल स्लैक्स पता शॉर्ट्स इज नॉट गोना वेयर दैट बास्केटबॉल नहीं, देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, लाइक ये व्हाट डू यू कॉल इट, तुमने डिज्नी चैनल फैशन शोज नहीं देखे हैं, लाइक हमारे पास इतना पहले का काम करने का, अरे उसके हाइलाइट्स अपडेट्स आते रहता है हर जगह, लाइक इफ यू वेयर नी लेंथ शॉर्ट्स उसके नीचे लाइक प्लेन ब्लैक और बास्केटबॉल स्लैक्स, फिर बुशी सॉक्स एंड छपरी लगता है भाई, वो इंडिया में ही पहन, बहुत छपरी लगेगा, दीदी सब मत पहनना भाई, जैसे पहले तो मेरे साथ बोल रही है नीचे 2 मिनट में तो उसमें कुछ गिर जाएगा या तो पूरा कुछ तो हो जाएगा मेरे साथ, तो मेरे से टच नहीं कर सकती हो, and simple tell me what you wanna wear, I wear some skirt and something, but party wearish नहीं, तो वो भी पागल है क्या, पार्टी में भी और क्या पहनेंगे, पार्टी वेयर नाइट सूट पहन के जाते, चल पजामा पार्टी, मेरे को पता है मैं रात में सोने लगा, हम लोग जो शर्ट पहना पे पजामा लिए, फुल स्लीव्स और फुल लेंथ, हां सिद्धि तू मैच के लिए नहीं आती है, सिद्धि पानी है वो भी चाहिए, पीछे आ जाओ ना हम लोग, और तुम मैच के लिए क्यों नहीं आते हैं, बोलो कर तो मेरी मम्मी मेरे को अच्छे नहीं चलने देती इसके, वो भी पढ़ाते बच्चे हैं कि मम्मी को बोलते हैं घर पर पढ़ने के, मैथ्स की तो पढ़ी, मैथ्स पढ़ी, तेरी नजर कहाँ है, सुबह के काजल के अवशेष अभी भी बाकी है, काजल बोलो मैं कुछ नहीं है, वो पूरा टाइम वॉशरूम जाकर ऐसे करके काजल लगा के मत पूछ भाई कौन है, मत पूछ, उसका डिस्क्रिप्शन करने में भी रिटर्न होता है, जेडी के लिए you know how Jerry stole this shit, नहीं मैं बोलूँ कौन bossy, know it all, wanna be, pick me, everything. The girl I met today at an MU. It's okay. See? What? Sixth question. Right. सबके टेंस टाइम लॉट होते हैं, हम लोग आज मीटिंग में बैठी बात करना नहीं है, दोनों लेक्चर नहीं दोनों नहीं ये सोचा सिलेबस हो गया ना, बाहर कितना पढ़ेगी उनसे, अब एकेजी को करते तो कुछ भी ना एक्टिव फील होता है, जिससे वो ये करने को नहीं करता है पूरा, तो ये तुम लोग के स्कूल में इसमें पूरा वो करा जाता है, हां तो आता है यार, तो खून कर ले खुद का, चल मेरे पे मत आओ, मेरे इसको तो कुछ नहीं जानू ले, तो मेरे पे आएगा तब इशारा है ना कभी यार तुम लोगों को बहुत एक्चुअली बहुत बर्बाद हो रखा है क्या, पूरा बर्बाद दूसरी बात तीन टीचर को अंदर नहीं आना after a very long time I don't know if this is something or the other thing or something related to school or something like that. Which chapter you want to do? You suggest history. Fourth chapter. No, civics. Fourth chapter of history. Fourth chapter of history. Forest society and colonies. अरे ये तो शुरू भी नहीं हुआ यार हमारे exams our exams approach very quickly because we need to finish the year before February. So before January 15th we have to finish the whole course. Working of institution नहीं है. अरे civics जल्दी हो जाता है. Civics हमारा hardly कुछ हुआ है. अरे man, but anyhow our course start with finish. Let's start with forest society. Yeah, we have to complete it anyways. Yes, right? Now you don't worry about that. No, now for near future, that means next month or like that, anybody having exam. We have November end. November end. Yeah, December start. We have November end because in December we have holidays.
I want January we have our exam.
PTM. Full course, no? Final exam. I mean, Mama, how is it? Oh, there's Archie. Oh, now I'm going to
I'm getting to forest society
and college. No problem. History. So which one? That is why both I have brought. Which one you are suggesting according to Forest society. Yes, बहुत easy है वो तो एक ही कर लेते तो मैंने पढ़ लिया पूरा चैप्टर में बस खत्म पड़ेगा स्कूल में बस एक ही के जा रहा है चैप्टर तुम्हारा मतलब एग्जाम हो गया है ना हमारा नेक्स्ट पढ़ चलो वापस नहीं आएगा नहीं ना तो हमें करना चलो
2 घंटा है
चलो जाओ
यार 2
okay see when we look around we find many things made from the forest products. We use many things in our daily life also. Can you give some examples what we are using? Paper, wood. Timber बोला? Timber बोला? अरे? मैं बोल रही हूँ. Okay. Food products. No, I'm even asking the goods. See, many other things are also produced from. That is the leaves of the forest also for many purposes we are using. In olden times, the wooden slippers were also used for trade purposes. Sleepers. So when we look around, we can find the trees are of great use. Can you tell some difference between trees and plants? Trees are plants. Trees have more mature barks and stiffer stems as compared to plants. And again, tree wood can be used in more purposes than a plant can be. Tree provides us with like a lot. See, the root of the tree provides us with medicinal purposes. The barks of the tree provides us with barks for henna, and the trunk itself provides us timber, wood, paper. And then the leaves are again used for food and medicinal purposes, and the fruit or whatever it bears is used for food. Whereas a plant, you can only use the fruits of the plant or whatever it's bearing currently. Okay, she gave some kind of definition. So that I want to ask, is there any difference between forest and woodlands? Forests got
Forests are naturally they are there for like centuries. Nobody has planted them. Whereas woodland is a thought out piece of land where desired trees are grown. Proud of you.
So one type of trees are
Yeah, only a desired tree is grown.
Okay. Now in forest we can see different types of plant varieties. You can find grass, you can find creepers, climbers, bushes. So like that, different levels of plants can be seen as well as the big trees. So a thick group of vegetation can be called as forest. Now let us go a little inside into that forest. Have you heard this word virgin vegetation?
Pure vegetation which hasn't been disturbed by people or civilization.
This that is what the naturally
Available vegetation.
that is born or found in a particular region is called virgin. Okay. Now we can also find the trees which are or the plants which are brought and planted.
Yeah.
So what it is called? We can call it exotic because it is foreign. For an endangered, no?
Alien species.
Alien species, but in the technical terms we call it exotic. So virgin vegetation and exotic vegetation. But now we can rarely found this virgin vegetation or virgin forest because people destroy it or the people degrade it. How can we degrade it? We always heard about the word deforestation. Can you define deforestation?
Large scale destruction and cut down of trees.
See,
The disappearing of trees. Deforestation.
Deforestation. Okay, you just try. What is deforestation?
Removal of trees for people's benefits.
Removal of that is what purposely we are removing. We always hear about the word degradation, that is grading down. So removal of the soil is the so that is what degradation naturally. But here deforestation humans are doing purposely, removing that large areas of forest. So here we are going to study about why this deforestation is done, how forests are useful, different ways the forests are useful. So that first part we are going to discuss about how forests are useful. Yes, that can you try this reading? How forests are useful. In your textbook, it is given. Textbook, everybody have? Yes. See, first part you have to say the clothes, the spices in the full cellophane wrapper of your toffee, gentle leaf, ABD, gum, honey, coffee, tea, and rubber. Then another, the oil in the chocolates, which come from sal seeds. You have to remember that. Which is seed? Sal seed. Okay. Then, what is that? The tanning used to convert skins and hides into leather. Do you know about what is that? How leather is produced?
Yeah, it is by skin of animals. It is dried and made.
See,
remove the skin and dry up, it is of no use. It will get that is it is waste only. We cannot because it is a lively product. When it is dried up, it is of no use. So there is a material used that is called a tanning. Tanning is used. That is after the skin is removed, the upper part where that skin is having hairs and all that part has to be removed. Then that thin layer has to be there. And in order to make it harden and for using for different purposes, that tanning has to be used. So that tanning is coming from forest. Okay. Then another, what is the use of you? Both of you busy with some activity. What is that? Then you tell me what product is used to convert the skin into leather.
We just discussed it.
Okay.
Open ears.
Then and they hide the skins and hides into leather, or the herbs and roots used for medicinal purposes. These all materials you have to remember first. First part only we are seeing. Then forest also provide bamboo, wood for fuel, grass, charcoal, packaging, fruits, flowers, animals, birds, and many other things. All these things we get from forest. Then you have to come to another part. Earlier, some more things were there. That is, earlier time, people used that gourds. That is, what is that? Long type of that one vegetable is there. Gourd.
Oh yeah.
Dudi type.
Yeah.
One that. So bottle. So that one is used for carrying water as a water bottle. That is so that inside thing will be removed and filled with water.
What if the plant decays? What if the plant decays?
Decay, no. That is, see, earlier times people used to work on the land full daytime. That is, or sometimes
they just take water in a metal thing or something?
metal. See, earlier time, we are not talking about that after the invention of that metals and all. They don't have
How
any.
long back is this? Exactly how long back is this? Like 500 years ago.
500
years ago they had.
See,
But what about
the people who were living in forest? How they come to know about that modern lifestyle?
How did they have clean water?
Huh? Clean water in the forest, that is small rivers and other.
Why can't they just drink it straight down? What if they have to carry
They are engaged in cattle rearing. How their life was. Let us imagine we are in the forest. You happen to be in the forest. Okay, you forget to take your food, water, anything with you. Okay, so what you will do? You feel hungry. You try to get whatever fruits is available in the forest. You try to drink that stream water. So now you have to travel some more time. So whatever thing you find, you start carrying that water in that. So people start developing it. That is in that earlier period, people used to carry water in that bottle gourds. And another thing they used to have is that plates. Nowadays, when you go to DMart and all, you can find that leaf plates. So these all were used earlier times onwards. Now it is very difficult for her to imagine.
No, it just doesn't make sense because if you see pictures of sages and all, they have that thing. Now, then why don't like?
But they could use wood also.
And they
had
used
used
in
bags.
if
They had something bad.
in that material, that means what is that God, it can keep the water cool. For long time, it can keep the water cool. I am not talking about that long that you call.
लौकी की बात नहीं कर रहे bro. I know.
There are different shapes and sizes, that type of vegetables, that whatever they could get from the forest, they devise it for their own use. Understood? Now you are thinking about this such a small locky you are getting and how to say
Loki, but
Oh,
still
yeah,
2 days will
but
stay, no? But then after that,
after that again they are getting, no, it is not for permanent use. Understood? It is not for storing water. It is for the use while they were in forest, they were in work.
traveling.
So
Why are we talking about development when our own islands are not developed? Like where people
okay.
let's talk about development.
Now, when the life were progressing, they wanted to clear the forest and settle in that area and do different activities. That way, large scale clearing of forest is termed as deforestation. We know that, have you ever gone to that tribal belts or like that, tribal areas? Andaman Nicobar, okay, Nicobar, that is very, rarely only people go there. Only for visiting purpose they go, but the people are very dangerous type. Because civilization did not reach that much. Odisha, you are telling. Odisha also tribal belt. Have you been there? Any area, that is Maharashtra also tribal belt is there. Any state, if you are going to that tribal belt, their life is completely different. In the modern age also, if you see, their life completely different. They
Depends on forest.
whatever things available in the forest, they take it and use it. Now we are thinking about, okay, we have to cook it. So they, what they are doing, they are just making that fire, that means with that leaves and all. So inside the roots of that some plants, they used to keep, and that way roasted way they are taking, and they are having that. So what which are growing below the earth, that is what tapioca. Have you heard about tapioca? So this type of things they are still doing like that. So we are talking about the development. We have all the facility, but still the people are doing like that. So when the life advanced, people also make their own lifestyles adjusted to. So the people wanted to clear the forest. They wanted to grow crops in that area. So there was a large scale deforestation. So that deforestation, why it was done? In India, it was started by the British. What were the reasons? There were 4 reasons for deforestation. Sometimes you will get the question, what is deforestation? Why deforestation done in during the time of British period? See, in 1600 approximately 1/6 of India's landmass was under cultivation. Okay, now it has grown, it has increased. Colonial period, cultivation expanded rapidly. The first reason is that expansion of cultivation. Are you able to get that
And
point?
increase of population can be the reason of deforestation in British rule.
That is also, but the British wanted cash crops to be grown. They made Indians to grow such crops. So there was a last day. Okay. Do you have that point?
Could you repeat the point?
First one is that colonial period cultivation expanded rapidly.
Yes.
British directly encouraged the production of commercial crops like jute, sugar, wheat, and cotton.
This was mainly kind of industrial revolution.
It is not industrial revolution.
It was Britishers
British
should stop.
see for their industries, they forced Indians to grow such crops, and these crops were exported to their country and made into finished products and came back to India.
Just to be sold at greater prices.
So, if we are selling the raw materials at 2 rupees, we have to buy the finished products at 60 rupees or like that. Means value is added by the industries. So, not for the benefit of Indians, for the. So, first reason you got. Now, the demand for these crops increased in 19th century Europe, where food grains were needed to feed the growing urban population, and raw materials were required for industrial production. 2 ways. One is that we know that wheat is a cash crop to certain extent. How it is cash crop? When it is produced for selling purpose, it is a cash crop. Understood? But otherwise, it is a food crop.
Yeah.
When we are producing it for our need, it is a food crop. But when we are producing it for selling purpose, it is a cash crop. So, when industrialization started in England, what happened? People moved from that villages to cities where industries were there. Okay, so cities become very big. So earlier cities were not that way. It was not congested like that. So now the people from the villages they came. So the lands in that villages were deserted. Now for that population also, food was produced from the British colonies. Not only from India. The British colonies were there in Australia, Canada and all. Many British colonies were there. From there, food crops were produced. From us, they forced to grow cotton, indigo. Even poppy was made into cultivate. Opium. What? Opium. Opium. So that was a poppy plant.
Isn't it a drug?
It
It
was
was used for tobacco production. It was used, opium was grown so that British could have trade with China for exchange in Chinese tea.
Yes,
Opium
it was
is a drug.
smuggled.
Is it a drug?
It was a drug. It was smuggled to China
In exchange for Chinese tea.
So, okay, this type of crops were produced. So, for that purpose, land was needed. So, forests were cleared. Is it clear?
I am pretty sure opium ruins the soil quality or something.
Opium
Every cash crop ruins the soil quality.
which is
No,
why
like
opium is
particularly-
worse.
Yeah.
What
But
happened?
even they were all
See,
almost all cash crops British
See,
but
it grow in the best soil. Indigo and poppy grow in the best soil, and it go deep into the soil.
Yeah.
So for long time the land cannot be used for any other thing.
yeah,
So-
I had heard of it. That's why I got it
Yes,
up.
it was like that. So lot of protests were there.
But none of
Yeah,
the things getting chilly. Or
After
where it is there. There is a apartment in there.
After some time,
Sit ahead. Yeah, we should try that burger sometime.
his permanent seat. First day onwards, he was sitting with them, no?
He's sitting with Anurag over there. Their best friend.
तेरे बेस्ट फ्रेंड्स नहीं है क्या बार बार उसको क्यों अटैक करती है
क्यों नहीं?
तेरे से बात करो रुक
अरे नहीं।
हर टाइम का हो गया है अनुराग शिप्रो तेरे बेस्ट फ्रेंड्स है ना ये 3-4 वो भी तो एब्सेंट है वो तेरी जिज्ञा हो रही है वो
Because Jigna का big boss.
तो बार बार
Okay.
उसको मत लेके आओ
Yes, first reason you understood? Huh? Okay, clear? Now let's move to the second reason. In the early 19th century, the colonial state thought that forests were unproductive. This word you have to use. You cannot use any other word because it was their belief that the forest is not producing anything by itself. It is of no use. So forests were unproductive. They were considered to be wilderness that had to be brought under cultivation so that the land could yield agricultural products and revenue and enhance the income of the state. So they considered forests were unproductive, so it should be removed. British considered forests were unproductive, so it should be removed, and that land should be used for the cultivation of food crops that will be useful. Okay. So between 1880 and 1920, cultivated area rose by 6.7 million hectares. So by 1600, only 1/6 was the area. Now the area started increasing because of the forceful practice of the British. Second reason is clear to you. Now let's move to third reason. Third reason is the need for railways and ships. The wood were required for railways and ships. So we know that at that time ships were not made of iron or that metal. So it was made of wood. So for that purpose, large amount of wood was, and that also particular type of trees were used for the ship making or that even for railways. Understood? This created which trees were there? Oak forest in England were disappeared. That is when industrialization started in England, oak forests were removed. Now here what happened? This created a problem of timber supply for the Royal Navy. How could English ships be built without the regular supply of strong and durable timber? In 1820s, search parties were sent to explore the forest resources of India. Within a decade, what is decade?
10
years. The trees were being felled on a massive scale and vast quantities of timber were being exported from India. So we have seen the first one is the expansion of agriculture. Second, we have seen forests were considered unproductive by the British. Got it? Then the third was that timber was required for ships and even railways, railway sleepers. Okay.
What is railway sleepers?
See, no. See, earlier time the tracks were not built by that iron. Okay, so that it took this thing and it connected. You might have seen when that railway track is observed, it is connected by two pieces. It was joined. Have you seen?
Yeah.
The
Which is connected by a
same.
plank of wood.
See, this is what parallel lines. Okay, and it has to be connected from both the sides. This connecting link is called sleepers, and that is one. Second type of sleepers. Nowadays, when you are traveling by train, you are getting that space reserved this seats. You can sleep. That is a bed type. Earlier, only wooden seats were. Understood? Earlier trains were not having cushioned this thing. So it was made of wood. So that is also called as people used to lie down on it. So both the things are considered as sleeper. So railway sleepers as well as what are ships purpose they need a wood. And the search parties came and then large scale felling of trees had taken place. The spread of railways from 1850s created a new demand. Railways were essential for colonial trade and for the movement of imperial troops. To run locomotives, wood was needed as fuel also, and to lay railway line sleepers were essential to hold the tracks together.
Wasn't it coal?
Eh?
Coal was used as fuel now.
See, that time coal was not in large scale use. So people first they find steam engines.
Yes.
Then afterwards only they started that is burning that this wood have to be dry up and it has to be burned. Now also that village areas are dry up. From 1860s, the railway network expanded rapidly. By 1890, about 25,500 kilometers of track had been laid. By 1946, the length of the track had increased. Okay, so you understood what were the reasons for that deforestation during the colonial period? Okay. Now, next part we are going to see is what is plantations. Have you heard about plantation? Any type of plantation?
Planting. Yeah, like when only a particular type of thing is planted. Like tea plantation.
Tea plantation is the
Coffee.
rubber plantations. Even banana plantations are there. Okay, so plantation is that a large area with a single crop, and the crop is grown in line rows.
Yeah, properly organized production.
Okay, that kind of agricultural practice is termed as plantation. Why we are dealing with the plantations here? See, when they started cutting the trees, they realized the need of growing a second layer of trees. Okay, so one layer when it is cutting, the next layer will be ready to cut. That way, they made a single tree plantations. That is called scientific forestry or commercial forestry. This word have you heard about?
Yeah.
See, in what we have just seen about the coffee plantation, this tea plantation or rubber plantation, what single crop. So they are grown in lines. Okay. Now when it is growing to a certain height, then it will be matured. So by the time the second layer will be planted. So then when the trees are, that first layer of trees are cut, the second layer will be ready for. So there will not be any shortage. Such type of tree plantations they have started. It is called a scientific forestry or commercial forestry. Okay. Did you understand?
Yeah.
So now let's see that who started and when it was started. See, British were worried that the use of forests by local people and the reckless felling of trees by traders would destroy the forest. So they decided to invite a German expert, Dietrich Brandis. Who was the German expert called?
Dietrich Brandis. He was an incredibly dumb man. Just saying. He made no sense usually. His scientific forestry was a complete scam because it had no science in it. It just had their own best interest in it.
And he was invited for their benefit only, no?
Yeah, then why
He
was he
definitely
teaching in their scientific forestry in the name of their business plans? Come on.
But in all schools, like British propaganda is only, so I don't think this is any different.
No, this was particularly a branch created to brainwash people.
So
Just
every school was particularly created to
basically
brainwash
not all the time.
all the time. I don't think there is any school which was under British which actually taught anything. It was all about British benefit. That is why they say that
They were creating people for their slaves, right? So
Exactly.
I guess that makes sense.
See, we were like slaves only under British.
Yeah,
That's what the British schools did. Like
So the aim was also like that.
and everything.
They wanted to.
Thomas Cromwell and stuff.
So the aim was only like that. So now people at that time who were living near the forest, they started cutting the forest without any kind of planning. They want fuel. They used to allow their cattle to graze in that forest. So this British wanted to discipline that Indian people. For that only, this great personality was brought. What was his duty? Here it is written. His work was to advise, and then he was appointed as the first Inspector General of Forest Industry. So these are things, objective type questions you have to remember.
Which year was he made the Inspector General?
1960.
Wait, the scientific forestry. Forest Act was made in 1865, no? So that time only, 1864, this year. 1865 first Forest Act under the guidance of Brandis. Okay. Brandis realized that a proper system had to be introduced to manage the forest and people had to be trained in the science of conservation. So underline these points, okay? What he realized, what purpose, in your book also it is there, body also there. Underline that points. He realized that a proper system had to be introduced to manage forest and people had to be trained in the science of conservation. This system would need legal sanction. Okay, so this later points are coming in your 10th standard geography also. 3 categories of forest. Okay. Rules about the use of forest resources have to be framed. For that, what all things? One is that a legal sanction is required. Second, rules about the use of forest resources had to be framed. Then, felling of trees and grazing had to be restricted. So,
What is felling of trees? Like cutting down.
Cutting down. See, actually, it is that when the trees are being cut for that use purpose, they cannot cut with the axe from that way. They wanted to use that best part of the wood in the proper way. So that is why there is a technical way to cut.
Machineries would actually pull out the trees, right?
No. They used to keep that root and that part. From that ground, see.
Then for what purpose did the British start actually extracting trees and then somewhere?
See, when what is that, in the hilly regions,
Yeah.
that Himachal Pradesh and all, they wanted to introduce a new variety. That is, it can solve the problem of oak. But in India, oak trees are not there. So the similar type of forest had to be made in India. So that is why they had to remove.
Pull out the trees.
So that is why. So only those areas were that plantation of that particular variety, because India oak trees were not there. For them,
Oak trees are required.
same type, whatever can replace the
Yeah,
oak.
but we can fulfill the purpose of oak trees.
So that is why that regions only they have this.
But British had so many colonies. So did any colony
Every colony suffered just as much.
had oak trees, forests?
See, oak can grow in particular climate only.
So there were like no colonies with that particular.
That. This can be seen in Canada. Canada was having. So that so like that particular climate is required for that. Cooler climate only it is. But in India, oak, that is Oxford variety was there. So that used to be made use for that making the cricket bags and that.
Willow tree.
Willow tree.
Kashmir's willow.
Understood? Okay. Felling of trees and grazing had to be restricted so that forests could be preserved for timber production. These all are different points. All the points you have to know. Anybody who cut trees without following the system had to be punished. So 4-5 rules he had made. So Brandis set up the Indian Forest Service. So when was the Indian Forest Service was set up in 1864. First time Forest Service was established in 1864. And what was the purpose of that? You tell me.
To enforce the forest.
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Why Forest Service, Indian Forest Service was set up? See, we were discussing about so many points that Brandis wanted to implement.
It was only even forest services was started to implement and enforce the forest laws that were launched by him.
So all those things had to be implemented. So how to implement? So firstly, forest service have to be made, and then they have to enact that act. Okay, that is why the first Indian Forest Act came into being in 1865. Okay. The Imperial Forest Research Institute, next point, all those points that a 1 mark purpose you have to underline. Indian Imperial Forest Research Institute was set up at Dehradun in 1906. Are you getting? The system they taught here was called scientific forestry. So where was that scientific forestry?
Imperial Forest Research.
Imperial Forest Research Institute at Dehradun. Many people now, including ecologists, feel that the system is not scientific at all. In scientific forestry, what was happening? Natural forests which had lots of different types of trees were cut down. Okay. In their place, one type of tree was planted in straight rows.
If you go in Uttarakhand, you will see that still they have trees which are naturally still in straight lines only. Like,
Naturally.
no, not because they are planted at this way, so it's still like continued now. Like any forest you will go now, they are in straight lines. They are not jumbled like that. Those forests now are natural, but the trees are older, so they are still in straight lines, parallel.
They started that method, that is why. But there are areas where this forests were not disturbed.
Yeah, there are few places, but most of the forests
in that, thick undergrowth of grass is there. Then so many varieties are there. So that is why we call it virgin forest. So that system they have started, that is trees have to be planted in rows. Then what is that? One type of tree. British time in Kerala, one place, teak forest was planted. One place, teak.
What is teak?
Teak is one hardwood tree. Okay. India's deciduous type of forest, teak wood is that only major variety. Okay. Evergreen forest you can find rosewood and all. But teak is seen in the deciduous forest. Teak is having a broad leaf, but very less leaves only.
Yeah.
So this single type of tree on large area. So in Asia's that oldest tree also could be found there. Its that breadth and all, that is when it was planted, how much is the age of that tree. All these things are written down. So British only did that. So it cannot be called as forest. How can we call it as forest? If it is having only one variety, it cannot be called that. But now I'll tell you that is in our country, there is hardly 21% is the forest land. In a country, about 1/3 of the land should be forest.
Yeah.
Then only we can get a proper vegetation and all. Balance, ecological balance can be. So this 21%, how they have calculated, even that rubber plantations, even that kind of plantations are also added. So the real forest area is lesser than that. That is why we are facing the problem. Understood? People started clearing the forest and building so many things in order to satisfy the needs. And in large scale industrialization and urbanization created the need for clearing them. Because this much growing population means we are going to cross that China's population. So that kind of condition, food needs are increasing. So that is why we have to be very careful about cutting that forest and clearing the forest. Okay, this much is clear. Scientific forestry. Who introduced scientific forestry in India? Now, what is that? Forest official, first what they used to do, they survey the forest, estimated the area under different types of trees, and made working plans for forest management. They planned how much of the plantation area to cut every year. I have told you, the first layer, when it is cutting, by the time the second layer also should grow. The area cut was then to be replanted so that it was ready to be cut again in some years. After the first Forest Act was enacted in 1865, it was amended 2 times. Once in 1878 and then 1927.
What
Okay.
were these amendments?
Amendments means
No, what were these amendments? I know.
we are going to see, it is written. That is, they have they classified the forest into 3 categories. Reserved forest, protected forest and village forest or unclassed forest. Okay, it is not classified for any purpose. So that is why they made amendments. In India, present time also we can find this particular law is working. British are gone, but still we are classifying the forest into reserved one, protected and unclassed. Unclassed forests are very useful because this can be seen in some of the tribal belts or the communities. For example, you might have heard about Salman Khan killed what is deer. So black. So Rajasthan, that particular locality, that communities were protecting that. That is why it become a case. So that area, the people began to think that it is my property or it is our duty to protect. So no outside intervention is allowed. So they protect the trees, they protect the animals also. That is why certain bells, certain species are protected. Did you get it?
Yeah.
So that is why this unclassed forest is good. That time the law was completely different. That is, certain areas the villagers were allowed to stay. That is why it is called a village forest. Got it? Now let's see how were the lives of the people affected. Foresters and villagers had very different ideas of what is good forest should look like. See, these foreigners, they want tall trees. It should grow in straight line. That forest look good for the foreigners. But for the Indians, especially the villagers, they want everything to be there. They can find use from anything from the forest. Understood? So that is why foresters and villagers had very different ideas what a good forest should look like. Villagers wanted forests with a mixture of species to satisfy different needs.
Yeah.
What are they? Fuel, fodder, leaves. Okay. The forest department, on the other hand, wanted trees which were suitable for building ships or railways. They needed trees that could provide hardwood and were tall and straight. So particular species like teak and sal were promoted and others were cut. Got it? Yes, from this paragraph earlier what I was searching. In forest areas, people use forest products, roots, leaves, fruits and tubers. What is tuber? Tuber. Tuber crops. No, tuber crops. You just come here. Mm. We want to see that what are the uses of forest.
Uses of forest.
Ma'am, is tuber
sorry.
Not potato type.
Next
Sweet,
one for the
okay.
herbs for medicine, wood for agriculture.
No, I did not choose it.
What are the forest products used?
Why forests are useful?
That also. Then we want some pictures, no? That is the forest products, the pictures also.
But class 9.
Class 9 history का है. Then this one is geography.
Geography. Class.
No, the pictures of some forest products which are useful.
Pictures of forest products.
That okay.
Now this is the child. Yeah, uses of forest. But
That
that's for 1 minute.
9th standard का है क्या? This is environmental. It is kids work. Major and minor products are there, no?
Yeah, we can.
It's lovely.
The lecture is about to end now. We can watch. Can we turn on the speaker? I will do that.
See, two types of products, major and minor. It is there in that paragraph, that is why.
These features are not connecting.
Is that on?
Yeah, I turned it on.
Yeah. Minor spelling. You see. It's not there. R is written like that. See, this.
We'll watch it after the lecture. In the next.
You just
Let's switch to that. Should I end it? Yeah.